everybody. Thank you for watching this live stream. I don't really publicize it too much because, I still get a little nervous doing live streams. I don't know what it is, but they're so much easier than sometimes pre-doing a video and all the editing that gets involved with all that. But welcome. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. It's 5 o'clock. It's a hump day live at 5. So thank you so much for joining wherever you're watching. If you're watching this live, great. If you're watching the replay, wonderful, fantastic. So today I'm going to talk about Trump and the tariffs. This is making a lot of news and it's getting a lot of people kind of panicked about these tariffs. And what does this mean for Canada? What does this mean for jobs here? And again, the media is probably getting it wrong. They're putting this spin on it like, terrible Trump, awful Trump. Isn't he a terrible boogeyman doing all these awful things to us? And it's like, really, it's quite simple what he was conveying in the first place. So he put out a post on Truth Social, and let's take a look at it before we dive in. This is what he had to say. It's pretty clear to me. Okay, so here it is. As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan, I think they turned that one around, but right now, a caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular, I'll just get rid of that, fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this problem, this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very heavy, big price. So, a lot of times when you do have a big problem, you can throw money at a problem and solve the problem, or you can take money away and you get people to do what you want. He's leveraging this and using money to sort of make a point. It's a bigger point. What is he talking about? He's talking about things being overrun by drugs and crime. So how do we solve that? Tariffs. And this is kind of an extreme measure that we don't see before. But so anyway, standing by, I've got the fabulous, the wonderful Wyatt Claypool. Hi.
Hi, I'm happy I'm in the category of fabulous now.
Were you not fabulous before?
I think I was wonderful or something. I don't know.
One time I called you the smartest guy in the room, but I think it was only you were the only one in the room. No.
Yeah, so it wasn't much of a compliment. I think I wasn't even in the room with you. I think we were still we were still all like, remote. So I was technically the smartest person in my own house.
Yeah, I feel the same way in my own house. But yeah, okay, so obviously the media is getting this totally wrong. I'm going to play a little clip from Global in a second. I almost called them Goebbels, Goebbels News, sorry. But, they're spinning this as this terrible thing and it's going to cut jobs. And especially here in BC, we've got the softwood lumber, we have big lumber industry here. So what is that going to mean? I mean, if demand is reduced, then there may be layoffs, but we can avoid, or maybe we have to get clever and seek maybe invest in other markets. But whatever the problem is, we're not there yet, are we? Trump has been very clear into what he wants to do. So is the media getting the message wrong? What is your take on all this?
Well, I did a video on it a little bit earlier today, and I used a screenshot of just the Google homepage when you type in, Canada, US 25% tariffs or whatever. Hit news, see what all the Canadian news sites are saying about the issue, and every single one of them, to a man, is like, "Oh my goodness, the tariffs are coming. It's going to in January. It's going to decimate our economy. What are the leaders saying about the tariffs?" And it's like, maybe an outlet in the headline should be mentioning that it only comes into effect if Canada's leaders are gormless enough that they don't just crack down on illegal border crossing, drug smuggling this has a lot of benefits for Canada too, because we stop illegal guns from entering Canada, which get in the hands of gang members. But of course, Justin Trudeau only cares about farmers who own shotguns to protect their property. But that's the thing. I also read the Global News article, and
Mhm.
yes, while all the outlets do mention that this is in response to Trump's demands on border security, which people should
They do
recognize.
mention. Mhm.
Yeah, they do mention it. Usually it's halfway through or a little bit into the article. And most people, they read the headline, they read the next two sentences that Apple News gives them, and then they move on. They do not read for the substance. That's why you can tell all the discourse on social media was about, oh my goodness, this is why we can't trust the US. They're so evil and terrible. Oh my goodness, this is going to decimate our economy. It's like, how about we just chew gum and walk at the same time, and we just, crack down on illegal border crossings? We could probably do this with less than $100 million. If that, we could just have more drones patrol the border, find people who are illegally crossing, and then we could shut down those border crossings, have police figure out where they may be storing drugs nearby. It's easy. But the media and lefty politicians want to complicate this because it serves their stupid patriotism narrative. Are you with Canada or are you with Trump? I don't really
Right.
care. I just want people to be better off. And the funny thing is that, securing the border better, it kind of goes hand in hand with people being, living better lives. We keep the
Secure
tariffs off
exactly.
and
Yeah.
we are safer.
Yes, like securing the border is better for us. I mean, how are all these drugs getting in here? They're getting trafficked, and BC has tons of this, right? So how is this even happening, right? Like if, like in Falkland, which is east of Kamloops, Surrey, and Enderby, there are labs, like super labs, right? And they're run by. I did a little research on this. They're run by transnational crime groups. How the hell do we have that here? And the police have seized guns, armor, chemicals, like to make crystal meth. And some of these things are being made by like produced by Mexican cartels. This is what's going on in BC. So Trump is basically saying, guys, what the actual hell are we doing? We're ruining our country from the inside.
Didn't we
Correct?
just have two drug busts pretty near the border in BC? Well,
Mm,
obviously, most of BC is pretty near the Washington border. Like
yeah.
that's something that the Americans are going to look at and say. So you had two massive drug labs, like basically spitting distance to our border, and we're just going to assume that those people aren't walking across the border to sell drugs in a market that they could get more money for them. It's just completely stupid. And again, we have, even though people are like, oh, well, there's not people rushing over the Canadian border into the US. Yes, but that's why terrorists like to walk over the border. People on the US terror watch list are 10 times, or I think 6 times more likely to enter the US through the Canadian border than the Mexican southern border, because there's way more border patrol agents on the southern border. So unless you're a drug cartel who operates out of Mexico, you're mostly, if you want to find the safest way into the US, you'd come through like rural BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and just float across or walk across, and nobody's going to notice you. Seems like a kind of a bad thing in a day and age where there's a lot of terrorism all over the place, as well as the fact that we're in an opioid crisis. That's always
Yeah.
drives me up the wall. Politicians pretend that they're working hard to solve the opioid crisis when one of the factors to the opioid crisis is the fact that drugs can very easily enter our borders through ports as well as the border, and we just don't do anything on it.
We don't do
Somewhat
anything.
someone else's problem.
We don't do anything about it. I just ran into somebody who worked on the downtown east side. He was in charge of programs and stuff. I'm actually going to interview him because I thought he was fascinating because he works with people who are just going in and out of these, what do you call those injection sites, injecting themselves. And the number he said to me was over 100 times a day. I'm like, how are you not dead if you're pricking yourself with whatever that many times? But he had a lot to say. But anyway, in 2023, 2,500 people in BC died from ingesting drugs, which is usually cut into other drugs like cocaine and heroin. I mean, this is kind of what's going on. And this is really interesting. Kevin Vuong, he's an MP. He tweeted
My
something. He
favorite
goes,
MP,
is
easily one of
he?
the best.
He's
Well,
he's
he well
cool.
he's actually really good at his job. Technically, was elected as a liberal, never allowed to sit in liberal caucus because they threw him under the bus, probably because they found out he was anti-communist and would blown the whistle on CCP stuff. But he's an independent MP now, and that guy
Yeah.
gets a lot done for not exactly having the resources of a major party.
Yeah, I think they tried to smear him with some sexual
Yeah, they just
thing
dumped
or
it,
something.
and
Yeah.
the
Mhm,
people associated with doing that have
mhm.
done it to other people before, which tends to show that it's a dishonest tactic.
Yeah, they always like to get you with that, like, "Oh, isn't he a dirty fella?" or whatever. Well, what we don't know the details, we don't know the situation, and a smear is a smear, right? But it doesn't matter, it gets plastered all over the media. But Kevin Wong said, "Everyone's been focused on the 25% Trump trade tariff instead of the reason provided. To date, the US Border Patrol has stopped 358 suspects on the terror watch list from Canada. Why are people on the US terror watch list in Canada in the first place?"
Yeah, and again, it's because Canada is actually one of the top countries in the world. I believe the top Western democracy for money laundering for terrorism, and it's because we just don't look into any of this. We have businesses all over the place in Canada that operate as IRGC front groups, which we only recently banned as a listed terrorist organization in Canada. And so so Kevin Vong's absolutely right. Everyone wants to keep focusing on the 25% number and acting like, oh my goodness, what happens if that gets implemented? It's not. Unless we had Jagmeet Singh running the government, even Justin Trudeau isn't this stupid. Jagmeet Singh said that he wants to go to war with the US in an economic sense over this. They just asked for basic border security. And like, mind you, Trump doesn't even think the US is doing a good job at border security.
Right.
I don't think he's going to toughen up the US's protections as well. He doesn't like the performance that Biden has been giving on the border. And I've had people, even on the right, tell me that, well, we shouldn't comply because the US basically put a gun to our head and told us to do it. I'm like, this is so silly. Like, you were going to do it, but because your parent told you to do it, now I don't want to do it. Like, come on. And there's actually, this has been like bringing a lot of people out of the woodwork who are suddenly super anti free trade on both the left and the right. I've seen this dumb clip going around
Mhm.
social media from the debate between John Turner and Brian Mulroney back when Brian Mulroney was stumping in favor of free trade in that 88 election or 89. And
Mhm.
everyone's saying, oh, John Turner was right about free trade. And what? I got into like the weirdest argument with
Mhm.
Harrison Faulkner from True North, where he was saying I was like wrong about free trade and then it's unfair, it's undermined Canada's sovereignty. I'm like, what? How is it undermined our sovereignty? It's actually free trade is good for individual sovereignty. You get to do what you want with your property and your money. Obviously, we shouldn't trade with hostile foreign actors like
Yeah.
China and Iran freely because they're not up to any good. But I don't feel like we have to be scared of the US. I also heard like, well, it's like free trade has unfairly binded us to the US. Okay, I guess we're binded to the US in the same way I'm binded to eating vegetables if I want certain types of nutrients. Yeah, we
That's
don't
right.
have to do it, but it's good for the country. Oh, but jobs have gone to the US. Yeah, that's because we are domestically stupid when it comes to the economy. Our taxes and regulations are too high. Even if we fully locked off trade with the US, guess what? People would just leave to the US and they would just set up their businesses there
That's right.
and sell into the US.
Yes,
It,
we want
it's
to trade. That's what free
nonsense.
trade is about. That's what commerce is about. We're not bound to the US. We want to be bound. We're built like the lumber industry is a $16 billion industry alone. We need to trade with them. They use our lumber to build houses. It's good for everybody. And these tariffs are not big bad tariffs. Right now they're not, but to spin it that way and to have David Eby go, oh, we got to stand strong and we got to stand strong. You don't stand strong for us as it is
Yeah.
right now. But I started this show talking about
When David
media.
Eby is when
uh,
David Eby, the man who has a posture of a question mark, is posturing about something, you got to worry about what kind of position we're in, and like as well as
yeah.
like guys, I hate the stupid patriotism testing every time there's a conflict with the U.S., especially with Donald Trump. People have been like, oh, well, you're shilling for Donald Trump. No, I'm just saying he's right on this one. What are
I
people
think
talking about?
so. I
But
think
people are
he is
like,
right on this one. And he's doing it in a way that we're not used to. We're used to governments moving so slowly, right? Ezra Levant actually said something, whether you like him or not. Trump doesn't want to impose tariffs
oh,
on
that's just
Canada.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to get the attention of our politicians who don't realize that Canada's absurd immigration and drug policy affects America too. And this is what David Eby had said. Trump's tariffs would hurt Canadians and Americans alike. You know, he's hurting us, but he's so daft he can't realize it. Canadians must stand united. Ottawa must respond with strength. We'll never stop fighting for the British Columbian families. What does that even mean?
And
What
that's
is
the
he
thing.
talking about?
We don't need to fight. We don't need like Beijing
No, we need to
saying
clean up our act.
we don't need to put together a war room to come up with an aggressive trade stance. Guess what we do? We just cooperate in helping secure the border. We are not it's not like Donald Trump wants to sit in like a lawn chair and watch us enforce the border and be like, you're doing a great job, guys. He is saying, let's get our own border agents to help patrol the border with you guys so we can stop transnational gangs from operating in Canada and the US. Both of
That's
them.
right.
It's
That's right.
helpful for both of
We
us.
we are our cartel playground, and maybe we don't need to be. Maybe the US doesn't need to be, and we need to cut this out. But I started the show talking about media spin, so let's just have a look at global. This is my old place of work. Yeah, whatever. Let's just see how they spun this, okay?
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump used his favorite word to threaten a trade war. On his first day in office, Trump says he will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders.
It's not clear to me that Trump has an understanding of how the global economy works. But it's something that has to be taken very seriously.
Political science professor Max Cameron points out most of the trade between Canada and the U.S. happens within multinational corporations that have plants in both countries. So the move would also hurt American consumers.
Automobile parts made in Hermosillo, Mexico, get used in plants in Kentucky that build automobiles. Same with cars in Canada. If you're going to be imposing tariffs on everything that goes back and forth across the borders, you're going to raise the price on the things that you're selling to your own consumers as well as to Canadian consumers.
The Greater Vancouver Board of Trade says the federal government needs to act quickly on the threat.
This is really concerning and would have serious consequences for workers, for businesses, for families right across British Columbia and across Canada. Now is the time for the federal government to ensure we have a one Team Canada approach.
Trump goes on to say this tariff will remain in effect until such times as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. David Eby tweeted, Trump's tariffs would hurt Canadians and Americans alike. Canadians must stand united and Ottawa must respond with strength.
What do you think of that?
You legitimately will become dumber watching mainstream news. That is such just cliff notes. Just like I asked ChatGPT what was going on, and then I say, "Can you treat me like I'm two?" And that's basically how global news does this stuff. And like the thing is, again, even the interviews, they're just skimming over the top. What's the point of even interviewing a professor who's, by the way, I don't like the combination of the color black and then a tan blazer. But regardless, I just got to sideswipe people as I'm going. But like
black and tan, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
They interview a UBC professor. I'm not even sure. Like, I guess professor of economics. I don't know. Then they
Who
interview.
says that? Excuse me. Who says that Trump doesn't know anything about economics?
Yeah,
a self-made billionaire or whatever.
He kind of had a better economy than the previous presidents did up until like you go back to Reagan to find a better economy. But like and then they have the lady from the Board of Trade, the Vancouver Board of Trade, being interviewed.
Ex-broadcaster.
But again, like what was the value of those? I think we need
the value of that was to scare you. She was like, "Oh, well, we better get on this, and this isn't right, and this is going to hurt Canadian families."
These aren't interviews. They're just sound bites. They actually, and this shows how wasted subsidies are on places like Global News, especially CBC. They sent a reporter and probably a separate cameraman out to go and have that professor say, I don't think that Donald Trump knows a lot about economics, and there's multinational corporations on both sides of the border, which it's like, what is this? Could he have just sent him an email and then read that, or like Zoomed for like in a call with him? And then the other lady's like, we need a united Canada approach. Like, well, who was on the other side of that saying, no, we need a completely disunified approach where we all fight between ourselves? Like, what is this?
Who is on the other side giving us, well, like, okay, Grace Key can do that story, but they also should do another story on, okay, what is actually going on with the drug problem here? Like what you and I are trying to talk about, these drug busts, these cartels, the border. We're trying to expose that side of it. It is a huge problem. People are dying. So when you get a clip of Bridget Anderson going, oh, this is really bad for families, what is she talking about? Fentanyl and dying when you're 13 years old from a fentanyl overdose is also bad for your family.
Oh, and it's just concern trolling, what you call concern trolling on social media, where people are suddenly, this is going to hurt families. Sorry, is she up every day talking about the carbon tax, talking about the overall high income and corporate tax burden, high regulatory burden? No, she might behind the scenes, but she'll never go out to the media and say, why are you guys only talking to me once there is a very weak threat of a tariff? Because even Justin Trudeau's already acknowledged, yeah, we're going to work on border security with our bipartisan partners in Canada and across the country with premiers. We've already solved the problem effectively. Even as befuddled as Justin Trudeau is, I don't even think he could mess this up. But while this is already solved, we had multiple days of just unhinged coverage. And again, none of these people who are suddenly clutching their pearls and tearing their garments and shrieking at the sky, and the sky's going to fall and dogs and cats are living together, and not a single one of them ever cares about real issues in Canada: drugs, crime, taxes, regulations,
inflation,
resources,
jobs,
terrorism.
farming, whatever. Everything that I see the government doing is just sort of hog tying industry. You're actually asking businesses to leave because of stupid capital gains, the water restrictions, the fertilizer restrictions on farmers, the carbon tax affects our groceries and our truckers, everything. Our government does a fine job ruining the economy. They don't need any help from Donald Trump. Donald Trump is actually saying, you clean this up and then we'll see what happens. If you don't, here's the punishment. And I don't think there's any other way to do it.
I guarantee if we just make moves towards it in the next 2 months, he's like, fair enough, good. Because obviously, I think it was a little bit of a hyperbolic threat because he wants them to get on it fast, because this is a bigger tariff than he's imposing on China. So obviously, it's hey, get together. Even the Mexican president, they say she's already responding and trying to.
Oh yes, the Mexican president has responded. It's she was very keen to cooperate. Because
but she also made that other statement saying, "Oh, actually, most fentanyl is coming from America into Mexico." It's obviously that's the clip that she plays for her own supporters.
Yeah. But speaking of Trudeau, okay, I'll get to him in a second. But when Trump posted this, the Canadian dollar fell to a 4-year low, while the peso traded close to its weakest since 2022. China's yuan edged lower offshore after Trump said he would raise tariffs on Chinese imports by 10%. Why not? If I was running America, I'd probably do the same thing. Everybody wants America first, America first. So he's like, I'm putting America first. Because if you shut down bringing in goods from other places, doesn't that not incentivize creating jobs in your own country, which is we should be doing?
There's always the give and take. I'm generally pro free trade. With Western democracies without terrible human rights records, and countries like China and Iran, North Korea, all those places that are up to something, for the most part, free trade's good, because if you can do something cheaper at home, you're going to do it at home. But if someone else can do it cheaper than you, might be good to outsource it. But the problem with China, and why I'm okay with tariff in China, is that China specifically sees international economics and trade not as a way of making itself more prosperous and benefiting its people. They see it as a power game where they're going to try and take over your industries by underbidding you, even if they're losing money on it, because their economy can just tell people to eat less food and starve a little more in order to actually be able to get a foothold into different industries. It's a country where it's effectively borderline slave labor trying to overtake countries that are actually trying to make people better off through their engagement in the international economy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I'm fine with the tariff. China already makes everything. Tariff them. Tariff them. Anyway, Justin Trudeau.
The factories will just move to Vietnam and Cambodia, and I'd rather trade with them.
Yeah, me too. I've been to Cambodia. Okay, so Justin Trudeau had this phone call, and Justin Trudeau and even Bridget Anderson in that global clip I played, she's like, we're Team Canada. We have to be Team Canada. So did somebody tell them that this is the new phrase they have to say? Anyway, I just want to show you Justin, who seemed rattled. He seemed rattled. Here, watch this.
Bonjour tout le monde. I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call. This is something that we can do. Laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways. This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do. one of the really important things is that we be all pulling together on this. The Team Canada approach is what works. That's where, putting aside partisanship, that's where I reached out immediately to Doug Ford to agree with him that we would have a First Ministers meeting this week to talk about the United States. Talked with François Legault and some other premiers as well. There's work to do, but we know how to do it.
He just basically said nothing. There's work to do. We know how to do it. I've talked to these people.
And that's where on my show, I was like, God, he's had like 3 or 4 or 5 attempts at a statement about this. And he just keeps talking about, oh, this could be bad for both of our countries if this goes forward. And it's like, just address the border security thing. That's the thing. The legacy media lets politicians like this because the legacy media in Canada is very anti-American, because American media is frankly better quality. And not even like, oh, they have more money. Like, no, better quality per capita. CBC actually has a bigger budget than Fox News does when you correct for population. But the thing is, they never actually ask these people saying, well, what about the border security thing? It never gets asked because the Canadian media doesn't like America. It's just very anti-American. And so they just want him to say anti-American things. That's why Jagmeet Singh is bending over backwards to pretend like he's going to lead a revolt into the U.S. or whatever's going on with him. Because people eat that up on social media, even though the left bubble in terms of support is shrinking. But Jagmeet Singh wants to milk it for all it's worth at this point.
Yeah. On another note, I'm also very sick and tired of not knowing what's going on in my own country. Like, I'm just tired of it. I mean, you seem to know Canadian politics well, and I'm getting more interested in learning, but I never was when I was younger. I'm really interested now because it means something to my life. But I feel like sometimes I know more about what's going on the open border in the States because they talk about it so much. And here, there's just no coverage, and we got to scratch around and dig for it.
Yeah, my friend who was on your show, my colleague Daniel Boardman, he used to do a show almost every day called The Worst of the CBC, where all he would do is the previous night or that morning, he'd watch the entire CBC The National, and then he'd tell you what happened on CBC The National. And I did an episode with him at one point. They will repeat the same story like 4 times in a 45-minute broadcast. In fact, they'll do 2 stories. Each got repeated 4 times. It was like some native people were meeting the Pope or whatever to get an apology for like residential schools. It was that and another thing about like the Japanese Olympics or whatever. And it was repeated over and over and over again. And you think about it, just watching it repeat, and you're like, these people have a $1.4 billion subsidy by the Canadian taxpayer.
Yeah.
Plus, they have ads revenue, because how could you not generate some ads revenue being on every single station and having 50 bajillion podcasts? Have you ever looked at the CBC podcast readout? They have like 85 podcasts actively going, and you've never heard of one of them. And you can be guaranteed every single person running a podcast and their staff are making close to, if not over, 6 figures.
Yeah, I get so sick of that. Whereas like people like us just kind of just do it. We just do it with nothing. We're not going anywhere clipping somebody with a professional cameraman like Grace Key was with that professor. I mean, she's getting paid, I won't say what an hour. The camera guy's getting paid a lot an hour. This is all money I used to make when I worked there too. And they spend money to go get that lame clip. That's where your resources are going. And
again,
have all
it
the
makes
money.
people less well-informed because
Yeah.
the details they give you are so scant. And this is why, for the longest time, you probably didn't know anything about Canadian politics, just as before I started like trying to follow things in a little bit more of a minute level from the source directly. That's why social media is great for Canadian politics. You can at least get news from the source rather than it being chopped up and whitewashed by the media. And then it just becomes oh my goodness, the U.S. might implement tariffs. In that clip that you showed, they don't even mention the border until like the tail end, back when people are getting up to go to the bathroom and make popcorn.
Yeah. So I call this podcast, I wanted to make it a short one. I called it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. If these tariffs do go through, what is I can see nothing of like, what is the good part of this? The good part of this is that if we comply with what he's saying we need to do, would we not be better off if we curb
We'd
the
be better off in
cartel?
multiple ways. Yeah, multiple ways. Security wise, we would be a better investment. It actually is good to have less crime in Canada, and an open border breeds crime. In fact, that's what my master's degree was in. My research paper was in studying crime in the city of Toronto. And what I have proved, and other people have proved it as well, but it's one of those things where the opposite is usually made. They usually make the opposite a study, but crime actually drives poverty. Poverty does not drive crime. So by reducing crime, you increase prosperity because people don't like opening businesses where there's massive amounts of crime. Just look at East Hastings. Nobody exactly wants to open a restaurant around there.
Yeah.
But so this would be good for national security. It's good for our economy, and it's good for rebuilding relations with the U.S. after Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh and the Bloc for like a year and a half kept saying that Pierre Poilievre's a bad, nasty, evil man because he and Donald Trump are somehow similar. And the thing is that they'll never tell you how they're similar or what Trump's doing that's bad that Pierre Poilievre is doing. And they'll never even tell you what specific things about Trump are bad. You can not like Trump, but it's always weaselly, like they're just implying he's bad and then implying that Pierre Poilievre is bad by proxy because they've implied he does something similar. So that's good that we can finally get to the point where Jagmeet Singh and Trudeau have to be a little bit less anti-Trump while in office and hurt us continually more and more with trade. At least this allows us to build some credibility.
Yeah, I also think that if I mean, you're very right when you said he's a bit hyperbolic when he made this statement. It's a little bit like he's teasing us and testing us a little bit. I think the bad thing would be, here's what would be the bad, that we just say, oh, F you, Trump, we're going to do what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden, people don't want our lumber. We are losing export, losing money, and we're trying to find other ways. And then families get affected because in small towns, there's layoffs and job losses. That would be bad. That would be bad. And it would start to get really, really ugly, even uglier than it is if more and more businesses left and more cartels and drugs came in. We can't take anymore. We're already full to the brim, I would say. So I would say that the outcomes of this are not going to be good. If we sort of play along, it's going to be a positive. It'll be a positive as far as I can see, right?
Yeah, and I don't really the only thing that exists here for Trudeau's downside, even if he complies, it's not going to do much for him. So, I guess if we were to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly part would have been if this is going to somehow buoy Justin Trudeau's popularity. I really don't even think that's possible.
No.
I think that you can't suck at your job for 9 years, and even if you start making some correct moves at the end, that people are like, "Oh, maybe he's got it now." It's like his thing with the GST, HST holiday. And reducing immigration rates by like 100,000. It's way too little and like far too late. It became late like 3 years ago. And so Justin Trudeau at this point, he's just going to keep sitting down in his low polling numbers. The problem with Trudeau is that he basically embodies the full Liberal Party. You can not like Poilievre and vote Conservative. You cannot usually like the Conservatives, but you want to vote for Poilievre. That doesn't exist in the Liberal Party because Justin Trudeau does everything himself in the sense that, while he's a very lazy man, he doesn't literally do it himself. People don't do anything that Justin Trudeau didn't absolutely specifically want, which means that if you don't like Trudeau, there's no way you're coming back and voting for the party.
But Trudeau has a big ego too, and there's part of him that's like, I'm not doing what I'm told. Forget it. I'm going to do it my way, whether it's the wrong way, whether the whole country is against him, like they were during the convoy. He doesn't care. He sort of digs in and does what he wants because he's that arrogant.
Yeah, his tweet today indicates he's probably going to partner up and go forward with
and get on board.
Yeah, with securitizing the border. He kind of has to. I could see him
because in 2023, they quietly relaxed all the rules. It used to be that before you came to this country, you needed a return ticket, you needed a visa, and you needed to show that you had a little bit of money. Well, they relaxed those rules on immigration. So it was like everybody in, and then once you came in, you could become a student, you could apply for asylum once you're in here. You know?
Here's a good point that Anthony Koch made on Twitter is that people are like, well, why would the U.S. have a problem with migration or have any fear of illegal immigration from Canada? Well, next year, there are 4.9 million student and temporary worker visas coming up for renewal, many of which will not be renewed. And if we can't track these people, which it sounds like Mark Miller doesn't know how to actually see if someone's exited the country or not, there's a good chance that if people feel like people feel like Immigration Canada will kick them out of the country, what stops them from just walking over the Dakota border and disappearing?
Right, right. Yeah, we got a huge mess we need to clean up. And, and we'll see how it goes. This story continues. Wyatt Claypool, thank you so much for joining me today. I just wanted to do a short little show on this. Just like it's dinner time. People are cooking dinner, doing things. They're busy. But I just wanted to hop on live at 5 for 30 minutes. Hump Day live at 5. That's what I'm calling this. Maybe I should find a better name.
That's a
But
good one. I like that.
okay. Thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you soon, Wyatt. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. Thank all you guys for watching. If you kind of like what I'm doing here on this channel, feel free to subscribe. I find it so funny, like when you watch, people say it so much, subscribe, like, and share, but it really does mean a lot to the podcaster. I find it, like Clinton Jaws, whenever you watch him, he's just like, subscribe. That's all I care about. And look at him go. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We will catch you next time, maybe next Wednesday. We'll do a live at 5. I'm working on some other videos in between. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you later.